Hello, and thanks for listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren. And today, for April Fool's Day, rather than putting out a new episode that nobody takes seriously, I'm going to go ahead and replay an episode from a couple years back with my friend Kolin, aka Decade Investor. Hopefully you enjoy it, and happy April Fools, everyone. Listening to the Adulting is Easy podcast, where we make adulting easier by making money easier. This is your host, Lauren. Please leave a review. I ask you guys this sometimes, haven't had one in a little while, so if you don't mind. I'm joined today by Kolin, who goes by Decade Investor on social media. He started his account in 2020 to get other young investors like himself excited about investing for the long term and to spread the good word of investing to all who come across his content. Thanks for joining me, Kolin.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm very grateful to be here and excited to, like I just said, or like you just said, share the good news about investing.
Yep, it's awesome. And since this is personal finance, let's pay some bills here real quick. And let's talk about property management software that's a little bit different. First, software doesn't really solve all of your problems by itself, but that's why Hemlane's property management software provides 24/7 repair coordination for your properties. That's right, use your own service professionals or tap into their licensed network. Second, a lot of you are investing out of state. Hemlane connects you with licensed leasing agents and other tenant placement services to help you find and place a tenant. And third, Hemlane is ranked number 1 by Gartner with 4.8 out of 5 in terms of reviews. So they're legit. Visit www.hemlane.com and don't forget to tell Hemlane that you heard about them through Adulting is Easy. Hemlane will dramatically improve your property management experience. So, Kolin, our goal for today is to make adulting easier for listeners by discussing a personal finance topic, since managing money is a big part of adulting. So today we're sort of going to talk about the time value of money and the reasons people should start now.
Yeah, I first just want to say I'm 24 years old, so my adulting career is very, very short compared to some people. But I have been investing since I was 17. So in terms of time frame of investing, I do want to preface by saying short or young in age, but investing career, 8 years, whatever the math is, 7-8 years. So been investing since I was 17 and excited again to share the good word about investing to all that can hear this podcast.
So your portfolio is probably on par with 35-year-olds, 40-year-olds on average, maybe better.
Yeah, somewhere around there. I just actually crossed over 250,000. So that's my, whatever that number puts me at, that's what it puts me at. But yeah, definitely above the norm, I guess, compared to other people my age.
Absolutely. So when people are starting out, is there an amount you think they should be investing?
Whatever you can afford. I think a lot of people, especially young people, they get onto maybe Twitter, they get onto YouTube, they see other people and it's like, oh, this person has the 6-figure portfolio, 7-figure portfolio, maybe even 8-figure portfolio. And they're sitting here on their first job where they're probably making some of the lowest amount of money that they'll make in their working career. And they're like, okay, this person's portfolio is 20 or 30 times larger than my salary, like my pre-tax salary. And they start to think, okay, I can never get there. I'll never be able to get there, right? I'm making 60 grand a year. I'm making 40 grand a year, 50, whatever. And they have a $10 million, $1 million, $800,000 portfolio. Math doesn't add up. I'm never going to get there. And so I think the biggest thing for people to realize, especially young people, is focus less about the amount that you have to invest and focus less about never compare yourself to other people, but don't look at that as like they're a different career time in life than you are, they're a different maybe investing career than you are. Focus on just getting started. I like to make the analogy of it's like going to the gym, right? When we go to the gym and we lift weights, we don't see the results the same day. We don't see the results the same month and maybe a few months down the road, right? Investing is a little bit longer time frame, but it's not investing $10,000 today and then being a millionaire tomorrow. It's, can I invest $5 a week, $10 a week, $20 a week and get I like to call it investing muscle, my muscles working. And so whenever you progress through your working career and you make 60K, then you make 80K, then maybe 6 figures and beyond, your muscle is already there. Your investing muscle is there. So focus less, especially when you're early on and you're young in terms of your investing, just whatever you can afford. Some will say 10%, some will say 20%. Maybe you're looking at that on a budget and you're like, I can't even do 10% right now. Okay, great. Do 5%. Just $5 a week, whatever it is, $5 a month. Just get something going. And that is how you get your muscles start to get built. And then you kind of can go down the rabbit hole of how do I invest more by making more money, cutting back on expenses, etc. But when it comes to starting, just start. Don't focus on all this big money. Just whatever you can afford at the time, get something going. $5, $10, $50, whatever it is, just start. That's going to be your biggest help in anything.
I totally agree. Make saving a habit. There's another side to that I always talk about too. And I've noticed this with people. Get used to having money there that's not for you to use. I think a lot of people, what they see in their account or whatever, that's what's available to them. Get used to there being money that's for the future that you don't touch, which I think is just something that you should get really comfortable with.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. I never thought of it like that, but it is true. Especially that's the one thing about investing in the stock market is what I focus on. That is great because anyone can do it, but it's also very liquid that you could sell, out and take that money back in your bank account within a few days. So yeah, that's a good point is get used to having money in an easily accessible account on your phone, like on an app or something like M1 Finance or Fidelity or something. Get used to, like you said, seeing that money there, but knowing that, yes, you could touch it if you wanted to, but it's in your best interest in life to not touch that money.
Something that I get asked a lot by new investors is, which stocks should I buy? Do you get this question?
Every single day on all my platforms. I get the same or something like that question.
What do you say?
My answer is, well, number one, I'm not a financial advisor, so I don't tell anyone to buy anything. And I think it's important to understand what you're investing into. And I want people to, because if someone comes to me and says, hey, what should I buy? And let's just say, hypothetically, I say, buy stock XYZ. Okay. And let's say we have a 2022 again, and stock XYZ is down 80%, 60%, 50%, and they just bought it because I said it. They're probably going to sell, take their 50% loss, and then be like, oh, the stock market's a scam. It's horrible. I'm never going to invest my money. And so for me, what I tell people is go educate by watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts like this, learn, and then, you can make your decision that way. But my biggest thing for new investors is, the best thing I would say is to start with ETFs. Start with broad market ETFs like S&P 500, something total market. It's not going to be the random cryptocurrency that's going to take your 10,000 or your 1,000 and turn to 100,000 or a million. It's not going to do that, but it's going to be, over the long run, historically speaking, at least, a very solid investment. 10 to 11% on average every single year. Doesn't mean every year is 10 to 11. It's some years minus 20, some years plus 20. It's an average 10 to 11%. And it will just allow you to get into the market. Focus, again, it kind of goes back to your first question. Don't worry about trying to turn that $5 into 50,000. It's not going to happen with these kind of funds, but you're working on that muscle. You're building that muscle. So then when you get more money to invest, when you have a higher income, whatever it is, then you can kind of make your decisions and once you understand more. But just get in the market by doing something broad market ETF. That's, I think, 99.9% of new investors should start there.
Yeah, that's what I do. I always say to people, I pick my real estate. I don't pick my stocks. I don't have time for that. I'm researching properties. I'm working on my properties. So my husband and I mostly have VTI, which is in Vanguard, which is, this total stock market. It's still like 80% S&P 500, but that's what we do. It's quick. It's easy. We do $1,000 a week right now. It didn't start that way, guys. My first job, I made $28,000. I was working as a front end department supervisor at Toys R Us. And here we are, using our muscles, if you will. And we've gotten up to $1,000 a week at this point. So I wanted to talk a little bit, Kolin, about literally the numbers of why it is so important to start as soon as possible. And guys, this is what we call compounding, the eighth wonder of the world, right? Yes. And it's this idea, well, actually, you tell us what compounding is, Kolin.
So I want to create a petition that says compounding, I believe, is the first wonder of the world, but that's probably gonna be tough to do. But when you see that term thrown around, it is very powerful. And compounding is more than just money. Obviously, this is a finance podcast, and it's finance and it's money, but it is more than just money. Compounding happens in every aspect in our life, whether you like it or not. And with that quote, compounding is the eighth wonder of the world, Albert Einstein also said, he who understands it earns it, he who doesn't pays it. And what that means is basically, if you're hearing this right now and you're like, okay, what is this compound interest you're talking about? There's a high probability that you're paying it, but you can quickly get on the other side of earning it. And earning it is doing something like investing into the stock market, investing into real estate, investing into yourself, investing into a business, is that compound interest. And what basically compound interest is at the mathematical formula. So you have what is called simple interest. Simple interest is whenever you put money into something, the principal, and every single year, let's say it grows at hypothetically 10%. So after year one, your principal times 10% is your new money after year one. Simple interest means after year two, the interest is only earned on your initial principal. That year one interest, that's just it. There's nothing there. It's just added to your contributions. That's it. Compound interest is interest earned on your principal every single year, but also previously earned interest in the years before. So that 10% in year one, now in year two with compound interest, it's your principal plus 10% that earns an additional 10%. So it's almost like bricks stacking up on a wall, like on a stairwell. It's the first year, it's like you get that one little brick. And then the second year, you get like maybe 2 bricks. The third year, you might be 2.5 bricks, fourth year. But then you look at year 20 or 30, and you got a brick so high that you can't make the steps, right? And that's compounding. It's the principal plus all previously earned interest adding to your future growth of your portfolio.
Absolutely. So said super simply, you put $100 in this year at 10%. Next year, you have 110. That means the following year, you earn interest on 110, not 100, right? And you do that like over and over and over and over and over again. So I came up with some examples, and this is primarily an audio medium. So bear with me, guys. Think about, focus, don't zone out. I know numbers are hard, but stick with me, right? So let's pretend you have $1,000 right now, right? And you're going to do $100 a month. And I started with 1,000 just for kicks and giggles, right? It's not that big of a deal. But let's say you're putting $100 a month in for 25 years, you're getting 8%. We just heard Kolin say that the stock market gets between 10 and 11. I did 8 in this example to sort of adjust for, 2 to 3% inflation, right? So that is over $100,000. Okay. That's $1,000 now, $100 a month. Think about $100. Can you cut your cable bill a little bit? Can you cut some coffee? You don't have to cut your coffee if you love coffee. You can cut your wine. I would never do that, but maybe you would, right? Yes. So whatever you can do for $100, cut that and put that in the stock market instead, right? And after 25 years, that's over $100,000. Like, that's incredible. After 30 years, it's 150. Okay. You get 100 the first 25, you get another 50 after 5 more. That's why starting now is so important. And to do another example, another example, $1,000 you start with, instead of $100 a month, you had $250, 25 years, 8%, $250,000 after 30, another 5 years, it's $380. It's a lot of money. So you, like what you said, Kolin, if people are sitting there and they're looking at social media, they're like, this person has 800, this person has this person has that. You can get there. You can get there. And I'll tell you how to get to $1 million. You start with 1,000, you put 1,000 a month in for 25 years at 8%. You're almost at $1 million. After 30, you're at $1.5 million. So I don't want to hear people say that they can't do it.
Yep. I first off, I used to sell wine, so please keep, my old career, please keep buying the wine. But
not a problem.
But secondly, I think, yes, and this is where I get excited about investing and why I'm so focused on getting people started young, because what do we hear when we talk about money? Usually is, well, I don't want to wait 25 years. I don't want to wait 20 years. I don't want to wait 30 years. Okay, no one does. I don't want to sit here, I would love to be a millionaire today. But I also know things take time, and if I want something, it's going to take time. But secondly, is if you start when you're young, you have more time for your money to grow. I don't have any numbers in front of me, but just go to a simple compound interest calculator on Google, right? And you can type in, if you start investing at 20 versus waiting until you're 30, that extra 10 years can equate to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars more, by investing maybe just $100, $300 a month. Like, it is so powerful the earlier you start. Now, that doesn't mean that if you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s that, then I'm not going to invest because I'm never going to get there. Well, let me just say this, and I tweet this quite often because I think it's very important for people to understand, because a lot of people think it's like millionaire or bust. Like that's the end goal is like $1 million. And I know you had Steve on speed here recently, and Steve Adcock, and they retired with less than $1 million. So like, $1 million is more of just like a vanity number for a lot of people. But if you're in your 40s, guess what? Retiring at 65 with $500,000 is a lot better than just being like, oh, I'm 40. Investing, it's too late for me. I'm going to just end up with zero at 65, right? Like having 500,000, even 300,000, 200,000 at 65 is better than having zero. So if you're young, compound interest helps you tremendously in your, as you progress through your investing career. But just because you're not young doesn't mean you shouldn't invest. It's not like an either or. It's just everyone should invest, in my opinion. But if you can start young, if you're listening to this in your early 20s or 30s, and you're like, okay, I kind of want to check this thing out, just start, because that's how compounding will help you. But it helps everyone. Compounding doesn't work with $0. You need something in there. Just get in there, and who knows? Maybe you're in your 40s now and you're like, I really love my job. I want to work till I'm 70. That's still 30 years. Like Lauren just went through numbers, like 30 years can equate to a lot of money with just $100 a month, $250 a month. So just start. The earlier the better, but doesn't mean you shouldn't start if you're older.
Absolutely. And by the way, don't blame yourself for not starting in your 20s either. There's a lot of that goes around. No shame, no blame. That's a your money or your life thing. Like just start. It's totally fine. And something that I think it feels a little unfair to young people is what, like I said, my first year of school, I made $28,000. That was like a 3.94 GPA. Like, hello, great financial crisis. Anyways, so then like $20 there is maybe the same, and I haven't done this math, maybe the same as investing $100 at 30 or $300 at 40. So even though maybe you're making less, your money has so much more time that it's actually better to start sooner rather than later anyways, even if it's not as much.
Yeah. And that's the like paradox of young age is it is the most powerful time for compounding to start in your 20s. Like just in terms of time, it's more powerful to start earlier based on math. But it's also in your like early 20s, it's probably when you're making, like I mentioned earlier, the least amount of money or one of the least amounts of money you'll make in your career. So it's like that balance of like, how do I, I'm making probably some of the least money I'll ever make, but also I want to invest something. So it's like that teeter-totter of where do I find that balance? And that's where it's like you just mentioned, just $20 a week is probably equivalent to, I don't know the math off the top of my head, but I do know that if you start in your 20s, hypothetically or not mathematically speaking, it's about 88 times your money will grow over the course until you're 60. It's about 88 times multiplier. I wish I had the numbers in front of me, but as you progress, that multiplier gets smaller and smaller. So yeah, $20 in your early 20s is probably equivalent to, 100 in your 30s and 300 in your 40s or even greater in your 40s. So in your 20s, when you're fighting against that lowest income making at the time, just find something, $20 a week, $10 a week. And like Lauren said, can you cut back on the wine, or maybe not the wine? Can you cut back on going out with your friends, right? And or at the bar, hey, I'm not gonna buy any drinks tonight because that's at the bar. It's $100 just to get drinks nowadays, So it's like, can I find something to cut back? And the answer is you can find something to cut back. You probably just don't want to, but you have like what is more important to you, right? It's priorities, and it's not do one or the other. Something I see a lot on Twitter is like to me, when I talk about, because I'm very open about my finances, I get, oh, you must live under a rock. And it's like, no, you can do both at the same time. It's not a invest all your money or spend all your money. There's a balance between both. But also it's like, don't forget about your future self. It's hard, especially, like me in my early 20s, a lot of people don't think past their 20s. There's like, it's like, what, I'll figure it out later. But make your future self proud by just getting something in there, because you might wake up 20 years later at 40 or 45 and you're like, wow, I got $300,000 in an investment account. I'm glad I was glad I was doing the $100 a month,
Mm-hmm. Become best friends with your future self, right? Yeah. That person should be as important to you as any of your family members, basically, right? As anybody around you, because that is you, right? And I think some people, they think of that as like, that's not even the same person, but yeah, it is. And it's sacrifice now or sacrifice later. I'm sorry, but that's really what it comes down to. Live a little skimpy in your 20s, by the way, which a lot of people around you are doing anyways, or live really skimpy in your 60s. And there's too many people in poverty in retirement right now.
Yeah. It is sad. And it's just like if you could, I just try to get across to people every day, just like if you can do something in your 20s to invest a little bit of money, 100 a week, right? Like I have a portfolio I put in, side portfolio I've been building that's $75 a week, which is $325 a month, averaged out over the course of 52 weeks, 12 months, $325 a month. Is that doable for people? Maybe. I'm not going to sit here and say it is doable for everybody, but for a lot of people, is can you? And it's not about always cutting back on wine or cutting back on something. It's, can I find a way to make an extra $325 a month? Maybe I pick up a babysitting gig, right? Something I do, right? I watch dogs for friends, like families and friends. Like, hey, they're going out of town for a week. Can you stay at our house and watch our dogs? And it's like $50 to $75 a night. So I do that one for like, 4 or 5 nights. There's $250 in my pocket that I just turn around and invest. And like, that could technically be my monthly investments if I wanted it to. So can you find a way to make a little extra money in your 20s by doing something? And maybe it's teaching a bar class or a spin class, or I don't know. There's a multitude of things you can do. So it's not always decrease your expenses. While that does help, you can only go so far. Income has no limit.
Right. And you can do both, right? Here's what you do. You drive Uber on a Friday night. Bam. You're not out spending money and you're actually making money. So double whammy on that one.
I like it.
So we've talked a lot about people in our 20s because you're in your 20s. I've been in my 20s. Neither of us, I don't think, have been parents yet. But a lot of people are like, I can't invest because I have kids. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I don't have any kids that I know of. I'm just kidding. I don't have any kids. And I find it, I don't know. I because I'm not in their shoes or been in there, I wouldn't really know what to say on that end. But I would just say, like, as a investing mind, as someone who enjoys investing in money, I would say, like, you make it important to, like, you don't want your kids to have to take care of you whenever it comes to old age, right? Like, at least you should not want that to be the case.
Right.
Like you don't want to have your kids have to take care of you because you failed on your finances. And I know it makes it difficult when you have kids. Like, I know I have friends that have kids in my, early 20s, and I know it's not cheap. It's not like, it's not like a dog, and dogs are even kind of expensive too, but like it's a little bit different with kids. Right. And I understand that, but don't be 60 and have to rely on your kids because of a decision that you made that is now your kid's problem too, when they didn't really choose that. I know it's tough. I know that sounds maybe and maybe that's not the right answer as someone, again, who doesn't have a kid, and I'm not acting like I do, but I feel like that's what I would do if I was in that situation, albeit I'm not in that situation, so I don't know if that's the right answer, but that's what I think I would say.
That's a good point. I was so focused on my early 20s. I was like, I want to get out. I don't want to rely on my parents at all. I don't know what that was. Super supportive people, paid for my college. I don't know why I was like, yeah, they're not going to float me for a little longer. Like, yeah. I bought my first house when I went under contract at 22, closed at 23. I was like, I'm getting out of here. I'm being independent as heck. And I was so focused on taking myself off of their financial plate, I never stopped to think about how awesome it was that they would never be on my financial plate, because my parents, a lot of my knowledge, I talk about this on Twitter. My mom loves real estate. My dad loves the stock market and retirement accounts. And they taught me those things kind of from both sides. And of course, I've added to it, and I'm more risk tolerant than them. So I've made some bigger bets, but I'm so grateful now, since I've been like 30, that I'm like, wow, I'm never going to have to take care of my parents. And that really is quite a gift. So I'm glad you went there with that question. I think it is a good answer.
Yeah, I've actually never been asked that question. So it was a good question. And that was kind of off the top of the head. But I think that's what I would challenge people that have children, that maybe are not in a financial spot to be like, they're struggling financially, is to think of it that way. Is you don't want, I don't know, but if I had a kid, I wouldn't want my kid to be having to take care of me. Because I failed financially.
Right. Yeah. It's like, I know you think, okay, I can't maybe get them the nicest shoes or something right now, but they'll be thankful later that you got kind of your house in order before buying them things,
Yeah. I actually, so I stream every morning on my YouTube channel publicly, and, people in there that are like OGs are always in there chatting. And there's this guy who's in his late 50s, I want to say, or late 40s. But anyways, he buys VOO, so S&P 500 ETF for his daughter. And he's like, she doesn't really know what's happening, but like I put a little bit of money into her account, like $50 a month or something, right? Which again, for some might be a big deal, but for a lot of people, $50 a month, like can you extra for your children. But he does that after he makes sure he is in a good financial position, right? And so he's not only setting himself up for financial success, he's also now building the foundation for his young daughter, who $50 a week, again, doesn't seem like a lot, but over the course of, if you start in your single digits of age, 0 through 9, over 20, 30 years,
crazy.
it is very 40, 50, 60 years. It's very, very powerful.
I just showed that to my sister recently. My sister's been on the podcast a bunch and she's about to turn 20. And my grandma gave us our inheritance early. I got it in 2012. It was like $3,000. It grew to like 4,500. She just got it. My grandma gave it to her for her high school graduation, actually. And so she's been DCAing. She's in college, but doesn't have a job, but she's been DCAing $150 a month into VTI. And I showed her, I was like, dude, the difference between investing when you're 19 and investing when you're 22, it's incredible. So that's a good point too. Invest for your kids and teach them, because no matter how abstract of an idea it is, they will know someday they have more money than you put in there, right? Which is key, kind of a key concept, that your money can make money.
Yeah. It's like the whole like generational wealth term that gets thrown around, and like people just kind of throw it around, right? Like, oh, generational wealth. But like, I think that's a great way to actually build generational wealth. You're not only hopefully going to pass down your portfolio, whether it be real estate and stocks or whatever, to your children potentially one day, but also too, like something catastrophic happens with yours, they have something going for them that when they were 3, they couldn't go open an account at Vanguard, but you did. You opened them a UTMA or something, and you give them $50 a month, and it's now worth 18,000 or 22,000, whatever it is, or more. And that was because you're building that generational wealth. You're literally passing the wealth down or growing wealth for the generations to come.
Right. And teaching them so that they don't squander it too, which is, I think, the best part.
Yep.
So we've talked about retirement. I liked your point of, okay, even if you're in your 40s, having something at 65 is better than having nothing. We talked about Steve on Speed, who was on here recently as well, and that they retired with less than $1 million. How much money do people need to retire? What should they be striving for?
Yeah, I get that question a lot too. Like, what's your number? Like what's my number? And I think it's hard to determine, especially in your early, like looking at early 20s or just people in their 20s or 30s that don't really have like maybe their life figured out just yet. Not like figured out in the sense of, oh, like I do this, that, or the other. But like for me, I'm single. I don't have a wife. I don't have kids. I live in an apartment. So my expenses and everything now are very highly unlikely going to look the same,
right.
10 years from now. Right.
Yeah.
So I think if you're in your early 20s, you're just kind of like just graduated college or you're still kind of like figuring out your life in terms of all those extracurricular things that come with it. I think it's hard to determine, but if you are like, maybe more foundationally set, like you have a family, and the easiest way to do this is to take your monthly expenses. So $5,000 a month, whatever it is, $6,000 a month, $10,000 a month, $3,000, whatever it is. And you multiply it by 12 to get your annual expenses. And then you multiply that by 25. And that will give you a rough estimate of how much money that you need to retire. And then this is, I think, what people do, or maybe they've seen this, they do this, and then they see, oh man, I need $1.7 million. And right now I don't have 100,000. Like, that is super far away. Then what you do is, I'm a math guy. So then you take that 1.7 million and you basically reverse engineer back to say, okay, I want to hit that in 20 years. So I know 20 years, my end goal is 1.7 million. How much do I need to invest now every single month to get to $1.7 million? And it might be less than you think. Yes. It might be more. I mean, if you're trying to get it in a year, obviously it's going to be a lot, but in a reasonable amount of time, you reverse engineer to see, oh, it's only $600 a month. And I say only relative to maybe that person's income, where they're making, $8,000 a month, they can do $600 a month. It's, pretty easy to do potentially. And so the easiest thing to do is, take your annual expenses, multiply times 25, and then reverse engineer back to see how much do I need to put away every single month to hit this goal in X amount of years. I think that's the easiest way. So the answer in finance is it depends. Everything depends on how much you need to retire. For someone, it might be 600,000. I watched a video the other day. Some guy retired off 600,000.
Yep.
But also, I know some people will say, I want 3 million. But I also think, and this is on Twitter, I see a lot of times people ask that question of like, what passive income do you need every single month, right? So or dividend income, and people it's a very large number. I think people overestimate what they really need to retire, right? And so they'll be like, I want 10 grand a month. And it's like, but right now, you're not even making 10 grand a month. And then maybe you don't really need 10 grand a month. That's a big number for you. But I think you might potentially will need a lot less. Now I know people might be like, well, inflation and all, relative, right? Relative to that time frame.
Inflation adjusted numbers.
Yeah. Inflation adjusted.
I remember I read a book. I think it's called Your Money Ratios. It's probably on my shelf, but I can't find it. But what he talks about in there is it's your expenses, or it's 60% of what you're making, because you're taking a lot off the top for taxes, and you're probably saving a good chunk. If you were even asking the question of what do I need to retire, you're probably saving a lot. So you're thinking, if you're making 10 grand right now, but you're putting 4 away. You're living off of 6. What are you going to start doing? Okay, maybe you're going to up your lifestyle a little bit, right? But yeah, you make a really good point that I think 10 grand is the number. Everybody wants 10 grand. I don't know. It sounds nice, I guess.
It's a pretty clean number, I guess.
Yeah, it used to be 100,000, but then inflation's now it's 10 grand a month, whatever. You make a really good point. There's a lot of people that can retire off of that. I can't, because I can't live off of that little, but that's the 4% rule, guys. If you've heard of the 4% rule, 25 goes into 100 4 times. That's why it's the 4% rule, right? And this idea is you could take 4% out of your portfolio, live off of it, and really not eat up the principal, right? Which is what you said, Colin. Then your kids get that and everybody's happy.
Yeah. and with that last thing too, with the retirement number and the amount, something that people maybe don't think about or forget too is hopefully, potentially, in that time frame, you might not have a mortgage because your house is paid off. So there goes, frees up however much you're paying there.
Yep.
And maybe, we don't know if this will be the case. I'm not betting that Social Security will be around whenever I reach the age, but let's just assume it is. There's also a little bit of a buffer you're getting too. So that retirement number could be less than what you really think you need.
Right. And something that I do when I'm thinking about my number and as we're getting closer and closer is we have our real estate. And so let's say it was $100,000, right? Less than 10,000 a month. And let's say I have $50,000 of real estate cash flow. That means I need 50,000 from my retirement accounts, right? So I take the 50 and I'm a retirement account, stock accounts, right? I take the 50 and I multiply it by 25, and that's the number, right? So, and you can do the same thing with Social Security. If you assume Social Security is going to cover 1,000, then just do the rest. I said all that just to kind of give everybody that baseline. If you have some kind of income that you're going to be getting outside of kind of a regular traditional stock portfolio. So what do you think, or maybe this is an it depends answer too, but what do you think people should, is there a savings rate that people should aim for?
The easiest way to answer this is it depends. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, it does depend, but yes, I think it's more or less about blanket statement. I think most people can agree 3 to 6 months is a good emergency fund for a lot of people. If you're a Dave Ramsey fanatic, $1,000. You have your goals of I think that's pretty commonly accepted, 3 to 6 months of your expenses. But I think savings rate truly depends, right? Because if someone's making $1 million a year, a 10% savings rate is $100,000 saved. If someone's making 50 grand a year, 10% is $5,000 saved, right? And so it's easier for someone making $1 million a year to save 10%. That's only, they still have $900,000 to spend, right, versus someone making 50 grand and they only have $45,000 to spend. So I think it's less about a blanket statement, 20%. And I say this as I tweeted something earlier today saying, invest 20% of your income. But I think it should be focused on what your goals are. It should be like what we just mentioned, or I just mentioned about the 4% rule, right? And multiply times 25. There's our end goal, work my way back. What is that? So I think it's less about percentages, but I think it's just about what are your goals? Where do you want to get with your number of your account value? As again, we're assuming the rate of return, but assuming an 8% like the market. If we assume that, okay, it's $325 a month. Okay, that is 10% of my income. Okay, there's 10%, right? Maybe I can do 350 is a little bit more. So I want to say 20%. I would love to say 50%. I would say 50% income, but I know that's unlikely for a lot of people. So I think the best thing to do is start with what you can. Maybe it's 1%, maybe it's 3%. Just start, build that muscle, learn skills, start something to maybe make some more money, cut back on expenses. Maybe you can do 13% now. Maybe it's 20%. But what are your goals with your money? And that will really help shape everything else. If you don't have a goal, if you're just closing your eyes, throwing darts on a dartboard, you don't know where you're throwing it, you're probably not gonna hit the bullseye. You might get lucky, but it's probably not gonna happen. Odds are against you. And so what are your goals with your money? And that will kind of, once you figure out that will help formulate your savings rate. Maybe it's 10, maybe it's 20, maybe it's 50. And then, income definitely helps. Higher income, you can save a lot more and still enjoy life. So there's a lot of to unpack in that question, but I would just say, what are your goals? And that kind of helps formulate. But if I had to give a blanket statement, 10 to 20%, and you'll be a pretty happy person.
Yeah, I tend to agree that 10 to 20% is a good number, especially if you're in your 20s to 30s. My cousin is 8 years younger than me, so she's 25. And so I was telling her the other day, she's saving about 10%. She's just starting out. And I'm like, if you do that from now until you're 65, you basically have guaranteed yourself that you won't be in poverty. I mean, which is pretty good, right? I mean, not a lot of people can say that this day and age. So I think you're right. Kind of for like a traditional experience, not part of the FIRE movement, the financial independence, retire early, like Steve, or like I'm trying to be a part of, right? If you're not trying to do that, you're okay working to 65, you get your Medicare, you get your Social Security, whatever. Then I think 10 to 20% is probably good. And do 1% if you can.
Yeah. And if you want to get there faster, you got to invest more.
Yeah.
And that comes from a whole different conversation of you got to find ways to make more money. I mean, that's the truth of the matter. But yeah, I agree, 10 to 20%.
Or get married. Getting married, yeah. I recommend it financially. It's a good financial move, actually. You should think of it. You should think about it.
Here we go, Lauren. We're going to do the next time on the podcast. We're going to do find decade investor a wife. It'll be like blind dates, and then there we go.
Oh my God, like The Bachelor, except what would you give people?
One share,
not roses.
One share of like VOO. That's not kind of a lot. It's like $350. A tenth of a share, maybe. I don't know.
we'll have to workshop that when we pitch that to some streaming service.
Yeah.
So I know you said some people ask you this and you sort of answered it, but like, what are your goals? Do you even have any intermediate goals that you're kind of working towards right now?
Yeah. I'm not a big like goal setter per se. I just I know what I need to get done to get to where I want to be. And, I don't like to say like by the end of this year, I want to have this, right? Because my goal, the reason I say this is because I made a goal. I turned 25 in a month and a half. And my goal is to have $300,000 invested. Well, I made this goal prior to, beginning of 2022, and I was like, oh, this, the market will kind of help me out. And the market has not helped me out to get to where I want to be. Yeah. Yep. Minus last month. And so, to me, but so that goal of setting, I wanted 300,000, I couldn't control that per se because of the market. Right.
Right.
And so I set hey, every single month, I know if I want to get to where I want to be financially, I need to invest X amount of money. So now it's that. I mean, that's like a goal, I guess, but it's just like a day-to-day of milestones of I know I need to get here, and here with my money. And then I do social media. My goal, I have goals and milestones I have set for there, but it's not I want to have this many followers because again, I can't control that. If people don't want to follow me, I can't control that. Right. And so it's but I know every single day I need to put out a thread. I need to put out something to teach someone. I know I need to put out a YouTube video today. And I know that I do this progressively over time, then compound again will help me out and get to where I want to be. And so, I just it's like a day-to-day thing. I kind of just see one day at a time. But I know 10 or 20 years from now, I want to get to here. And I just break it down and say, okay, if I do this every single day, every single month, I believe it will take me to where I want to be.
I do the same thing too. People are like, so do you have a goal for how many Twitter followers you want? And I was like, no, I have a goal for how many tweets I'm going to do. Right. That's it. That's all I can control. If I have a follower count, then it's, well, I guess I could try to be more likable, but that's a topic for my therapist, I think.
Yeah. I made a goal last year to get $100,000 in VOO by the end of the year. And I was investing $1,000 a week to try to hit this goal, and it was just like market was not helping at all.
$1,000 done, and it's gone,
exactly.
and it's gone.
Yeah,
and it's...
like I was stuck on a amount. I ended up hitting it, but it was one of those things where like the especially in investing, like if we get back to investing, like the money in the short term, like the valuation is going to fluctuate a ton. But yeah, like I made those goals, and it's just I actually have VOO tattooed on my leg. I don't know if you saw that.
What?
Yeah, I won't show you, but I'll send you a picture of this. But I do a VOO tattooed on my knee. I made a goal. With my community. I said if I get $100,000 in VOO, I'm gonna get a tattoo. So I do it like on the side of my knee, a VOO tattoo.
Oh my God, how did I miss that tweet?
Yeah, I'll send you a picture of this.
It's the Twitter problems. That's what's going on right now.
Yeah, you gotta go private.
I am private right this second.
I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, it's working. I'm busier on Twitter than I've been in like a month, ironically. So Kolin, is there anything else you want to add before you wrap up?
No, I just think like the best thing that people can do when it comes to money at all ages, but especially your early 20s, is like I mentioned at the beginning of this, is just start. It's like it's like the gym. You go, you lift a little bit. It's not gonna happen overnight. You're not gonna be able to do 45s, on bench press, and the next day you do 245s, like 2 plates. This is not gonna happen, right?
Yep.
Same thing with investing. Like you're not gonna my investing style. I invest for the long term. It's not the flashy stuff. It's not the day trader that's in front of the Lamborghini on the YouTube ad. That's not me, because well, that's a whole different conversation for a different day. But those people are not really making their money off trading. But anyways, but like I'm gonna live to my 50s unless there's like a crazy thing that happens. I'm gonna live to my 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s. And technology, I might live to my 100 plus. I don't know. So why not set myself up for there? And I can do that and I can really guarantee it almost. Guarantee is a strong word. I don't want to say guarantee for sure, but 99% probability, have a lot of money there if the market does what it's always done historically, by just starting with something today. So in your early 20s, it's very powerful to start. In your 30s, it's powerful. In your 40s, it's powerful. In your 50s, it's powerful. In your 60s, it's also powerful. But if you start in your 20s, it's very, very powerful. So if you're listening to this right now and you've never invested before, my challenge to you is just $10 this week. Whatever week if you're listening to this, the day it comes out or a month later, doesn't matter. Whatever today is, the next day the market's open, I challenge you to open an account and just put $10 in and buy something broad market, like a VTI, VOO, and just see what happens. Just get that muscle. Go to the investing gym, just like you go to the gym, the Planet Fitness or whatever. Go to the investing gym, and you'll look back 20 years from now, and you'll be like, wow, thank you, future. Insert your name. I think that's my message to the world. And
then get a tattoo immediately. Put $10 in, and
don't get a tattoo. I already know my future wife is gonna be like, what the heck is that? And I'll have to explain. I got peer pressured by my followers on YouTube and Twitter to do this. No one actually peer pressured me, but I was like, I have to do it.
I told a bunch of people I've never met that I would do it, so I had to.
Yeah. I mean, if you tell people on YouTube, you have to do it, right? I'm a man of my word on social media. I know as you probably know, there's a lot of people that are not true who they really say they are, and they fib a lot of things. Yep. I'm not that person. I know you're not that person. I have no reason to lie. Like, why would I? So I told people, I was like, when I get $100,000 in VO, I'm gonna get a tattoo. And then it came around, and I hit the goal, and I was like, okay, I'm a man of my word. I have to get this tattoo. So yeah, people didn't believe me. I posted a picture and like, oh, it's a fake one. So then a week later, it's still here. It is not going anywhere. So ever, it is not going anywhere. I recommend you to start investing, but don't do the tattoo part. That's just save that for not smart people. But
I'm going to make the title of this, Don't Get a Tattoo.
The man with the VOO tattoo.
Oh man, we are off the rails. Well, do you want to tell people how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can find all my social media, Twitter, Instagram, which I need to spend more time on, Instagram and YouTube at Decade Investor. There's a lot of fakes. Twitter, I pay $11.99, I think it is, a month to be verified. Yes, I pay for Twitter. So I cannot retire early, but I can pay for Twitter. So it is the blue check mark on Twitter at Decade Investor, YouTube at Decade Investor, Instagram at Decade Investor. And then everything else kind of stems from there, but that's where you can find me and pop into the DM, say hello. I will reply. I am a human. and I'll reply back and we can chat.
Yep, absolutely. And guys, if you liked this episode, by the way, you may also like number 149, which is how a family of 4 lives on less than 60K and still invests. You also might like number 56, going back in the Wayback Machine, which is simple financial advice with J-Rod. Keep it going, listen to those. And you can follow me on Twitter at Adulting is Easy. I started a YouTube channel too, also at Adulting is Easy. I am on Instagram. I'm posting 200 times in 2023. That is my goal, at Adulting is Easy Real. And thanks again for listening, everybody. Hopefully, Kolin and I have made adulting a little easier for you.